pretty weird. Apparently, people are using the card companies now, since they can't win through petitions and they can't win through convincing people. They're now using the authority of card companies like Visa and MasterCard to push narratives and get rid of things that they don't like. So, it's no longer about freedom anymore. It's about what they want and expect you to like what they like. So, hopefully this isn't a start of further bad things. I understand the need to take down like literal XXX games off of Steam and other sites. I mean, I can see the reasons, but I can tell you right now, if they start targeting games where they don't like the way a woman looks, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have problems. A lot of them. Because there are a ton of games with women that look a certain way and they don't like it. Like, imagine with Stellar Blade, when it was based off an actual model from South Korea, and they literally decide, well, she looks way too hot, so we're going to take down the game. We want it taken down. We demand this game go away. That's what we're getting to. So I really hope this doesn't become a force that gets abused by every extreme political group, but something tells me it probably is. So let's take a look at and see what they're going to tell us about this whole situation.
Steam's new rule changes everything, and Valve, at least from their perspective, had no choice but to implement. So here's what's happened. Last week, Valve quietly added Rule 15 to Steam. They used to have 14, now there are 15. And this 15th rule bans content that payment processors don't like. Now, this is not illegal content. It's just content that Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal find to be objectionable.
Now, I understand the group from Australia that did this, and I know they manipulated these car companies through pressuring them to do it, but how can I look at this? It's not a positive thing, but it's also not totally negative when you look at what there is that they're doing. For a good example, there was the ad apocalypse, which happened with YouTube and happened with Twitch. Both times were because the companies supporting the ads and providing them, which were paying YouTube and Twitch, did not like the content that they were being promoted on. So they pulled out, forcing those companies to have to enforce certain things on their platforms before they would even think about coming back. Now, I get it. Visa, MasterCard, and sex games. Perhaps that's the ceiling, and that's where it'll stop. Hopefully it does. But if it doesn't, woo-wee, we're in for a long ride. I just hope we don't have extreme abuse of politicals on this. Really don't. Boy, oh boy.
And here's what this means. It means that Valve no longer controls what is on their platform. The payment companies control that. And if this kind of thing sounds...
Well, again, to reiterate, this happened with Twitch and happened with YouTube with the adpocalypse. They didn't like the content that they were being ads were being put on, so those people that provide that ad revenue pulled out. This is going to happen. So the companies will find ways to enforce the things they don't want to see. A lot of people don't like that they're targeting these games. Like Asmongold had his thoughts on it and didn't like it, period. He says they shouldn't get to tell you what games you are not allowed to see and what you shouldn't be allowed to view. The problem is, though, when you get around to this, it comes right back to us. Because how often are kids able to create an account beyond their parents' purview? Because parents these days don't like to parent as often. They like to put you in front of a tablet and say, this is your babysitter, let this occupy you. And they'll make an account, and those kids will make that account and change their age. And it's not even hard to do. You don't have to provide any identity verification. And then they can literally go on there and just get on whatever they want. Now, a good example is like my brother-in-law and my sister. They actually control what content their kids can view completely. They have parental controls, locks, everything you could possibly imagine to monitor them, which I totally approve of. But most parents don't. And these platforms like Steam can't be 100% deterrence for preventing kids from saying that they're 18 years of age or older and then looking at this sex stuff. So, as far as I can tell, it's a subtle nuance. It's 50-50. It can be a good thing that they're getting rid of the content, but it can also be a bad thing for the overall industry if other political parties try to use this type of tactic to empower their own beliefs and push it to get rid of everything. See, at some point, it has to draw a line in the sand, and once you go over that line, that's where it stops. We've seen, though, what happens when some group crosses a certain line and we go after them. I mean, I can name quite a few. J.K. Rowling in the incident with a unique gentleman who was always calling her all kinds of names. I will not reiterate those names. She then, after a year or so of back and forth with this guy, decided, you know what? Fine. Since you don't want to stop what you're doing, I'm just going to sue you. Then proceeded to sue him. And then he took down everything and issued a public apology. Next, you got now the H3H3 situation with all the Hassan orbiters. People that will take H3H3's content, post it online, and then they don't have any reasonable transformative editing or words in it. It's just them leaving their chair to go use the bathroom. It's literally a meme now. And now we've got a political group in Australia full of Karens, apparently, who do not like certain content and they want to see it gone. So now that they can weaponize these companies, they're going to do that. Now, do I think they can weaponize the company to do this? Like the whole take down the sex games that were on Steam, I get. That's perfectly fine. But if they start targeting everything because they don't like it, we're going to have a problem. But will the companies continue to deal with this? Will they want to listen to these people complaining all the time? Who knows? They listened to them this time because they had valid reasons. I'm not going to deny that their reasons were not valid because they were. They were concerned about that. So as concerned parents, they decided to do that. But again, they're attacking the platform for it instead of just restricting their child's access to it. I'm curious how many of them actually have kids and are just not part of a group and deciding to enforce something on everyone else's kids. See, the responsibility needs to stop falling to these companies and these platforms. It needs to fall to the parents. If the parents aren't willing to take the time to put up parental blocks, parental protections for their kids, then they have no reason to allow them on these websites, period. It goes all the way back to the early 90s when all you would hear about is parents complaining about what their kids get access to and blaming the game, blaming the movie, blaming the media, blaming the TV, blaming the radio, blaming the songs, instead of taking a more proactive approach to being a parent. You chose to have kids. You got to take responsibility for that. I don't have kids because I don't want to take responsibility for that. I don't believe I'd make a good father in any reasonable dynamic. But it just comes down to one subtle nuance. Parents need to start being parents and stop blaming the companies for the content. That parents need to stop and just parent. I mean, it's not that hard. You chose to have kids, take some responsibility. Parent them. You chose this responsibility, so you'll be parenting them for 18 years, preparing them for their walks in life. Try to have some fun with it, too. You can. I've seen my brother-in-law do it. I've seen my sister do it. They both, with their kids, like to have some fun. It's not perfect for anybody, but at least try. Just parent. That's all I'm asking everybody. Stop trying to enforce political ideologies on things and make it the whole thing.
It's familiar to you, it should. Countless platforms like Patreon have experienced similar, and then just after we finished the body of this video, well, the hammer blow fell on Itch as well. There's a lot going on.
I want to be clear, I don't know what Itch is. I've never heard of it. It seems weird. No clue who Itch is, what site that is. It says IO. That reminds me of Mod.io. Maybe it's like that. Because Mod.io is pretty fun. That's a thing that I use for Baldur's Gate 3 with Larian Studios for mods. So as far as I can tell, we'll see what happens. But The Patreon thing, I knew Patreon had something going on, like years back, but I didn't know what it was. Oh, so is it like better than Steam or something? Like, or is it more freeware based? Like you can just upload whatever you want? Because I would assume even for a smaller platform, it has to abide by some restrictions. No clue what those are. Never heard of itch. I knew with Patreon stuff was going on.
On Steam, though, to just stay focused on that for now, what just happened is that hundreds of games just got pulled. Developers got a $100 credit as compensation.
It's kind of like giving someone a gift card and then telling them, here you go, make this last. Oh, so they're kind of like Kick in a way then. Because Kick takes a 95/5 for streamers on revenue, though I think that'll change over time. Because Kick's going to have to make changes here and there. Things are going to change, just like with Twitch. Nothing stays forever the same.
And this is just the beginning. We're going to see way more. And the situation is that the people impacted are furious. The fans are actually quite scared, quite worried. But the people who pushed for this change, they are happy, they've had success, and they are not planning on stopping. I've also...
Well, it depends on how far the companies are willing to tolerate dealing with their bullcrap. Because I understand them wanting to take down all those sex games. I get it. But I still think they should be better parents and stop blaming the platforms for the problems. Because just parent. If my brother-in-law and my sister can do it with 3 kids, I'm sure these simple parents in Australia can do it as well. It's not hard. You just got to parent. Be a parent.
Also got big news for the thousands of you
blaming
who
all the
visited and
platforms.
used our sponsor boot.dev, and that news is TypeScript. If you know what that means, you know it's pretty huge. The entire backend learning path is now playable in TypeScript as well as Go. It's funny, Lane, the founder's tweet, basically just reads, "Fine, you win. We've capitulated to the way of soy because enums." And if you're wondering why you should care, well, TypeScript is Microsoft's vastly more powerful JavaScript, static types, fearless...
If the video, I have a rule when I watch videos and react to them. If the video is several months old and I'm just catching it, I won't play the ad that they have in the video. However, if it's like 5 hours ago or a day or so, I will play the ad. It's out of respect for them willing to put out the content. I want to be respectful to the content creator.
3 factors, editor auto-completion, lots of lovely things, which is why Google, Slack, and Airbnb use it in production. It lets you catch bugs while you're coding instead of...
Airbnb? I mean, Airbnb? Ha! That's ironic. I run 2 Airbnbs, and I caretake one of them. Good old Airbnb. It's not so bad.
You know, when the server's on fire. TypeScript's awesome. Now, boot.dev wraps all of that in the power of an RPG. That means quests, XP, boss fights, real-time leaderboards.
Yeah, it's just me trying to be fair to them.
You get to enjoy that while you're wiring up databases.
I'm just reacting to their content that they edited and made.
And now doing
my goal is just to give them proper respect. Now, if the video's like over a month old, then no, I'll skip the ad.
You'll have the confidence to dual-wield TypeScript and Go in any gig, which is going to be huge for employers.
Month, 2 months, 6 months.
There's a bit of a hack to save you the most money. Boot.dev/BallyLearNews, code BallyLearNews gets you 25% off with your first purchase. But what you can do is buy the yearly plan for the largest saving, because, you know, 25% of a bigger number is a bigger number.
He does a lot of WoW
content. Well, just use the no-risk 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, let's talk about what actually happened. Steam used to have 14 rules for developers. We actually just looked at it recently in this video, but now there's a 15th rule.
Oh, so they did add 15. Okay, I thought so. Is it really rules, or is it terms of service? Or is it EULA agreement? I have no idea. All I do is go on there and play games I like and move on.
So here's the new rule. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. That's, the thing you can't do. Now pay attention to the wording here. May. Not does violate. Just may violate.
meaning the card companies will pick and choose. I mean, I get it. I understand the card companies wanting to get rid of this kind of content on a platform that they're being on. Let's look back in history. Let's go back about a decade or so. We had the YouTube ad apocalypse back with Total Biscuit, and during that whole incident, companies that are providing ad revenue for for YouTube were pulling out because they didn't like the content that was on YouTube at the time, and they demanded change. So YouTube changed its terms of service, did a lot of video deleting, and thus they came back. Twitch did something very similar. Twitch had the adpocalypse as well. And then they pulled out, and then as a result, Twitch had to change its terms of service, start enforcing certain content, and deleting certain VODs. And they did. And then the companies came back and provided ad revenue. I mean, if MasterCard and Visa are going to do this, I can understand them not wanting that kind of content on Steam, but they're doing it later when they should have done it sooner. Like, they're providing a payment service for another company, and they're just now deciding we're going to change it the last second. See, it's like companies at the whims of companies. What's the point of a terms of service with one and then a terms of service with another when you've instead the end user, which is us, the consumer, now have to memorize 2 terms of service? I mean, now I got to go check out Visa and MasterCard's terms of service, which is like nearly 80 pages long, instead of Steam's simple little scroll down, which is less than a 10-minute read. Too many terms of service. I'm not going to read all those. That's too much. There is too many YouTube. There definitely is too much of that. But you can get an ad blocker, even though YouTube's really trying hard to push against that. They're trying really hard. I mean, they even took down Linus Tech Tips tutorial video on ad blockers, and they didn't like that very much.
And what's key to understand is this goes beyond the existing rules. As an example, Rule 3 already bans mislabeled adult content. Rules 6 and 7 ban illegal content and shock value material. So what's Rule 15 for? Well, it's for content that previously was allowed by the other 14 rules. Content that is now retroactively...
Are you telling me Steam wasn't enforcing the rules earlier? Based on what he just said there, and with the content of what I just saw, he's basically saying they didn't enforce the content originally. Oh, okay. Well, just goes to show, as much as I love Steam, they're doing the same thing Twitch is then. Not enforcing their terms of service equally among all their content creators or developers. Ugh, it's ugly. YouTube does it. Twitch does it. Now Steam does it. Boy. I haven't had that problem, and I've had this going for a long time. Believe me, if they were going to block based on ad blockers, everybody would have been blocked that uses their phone and uses that little ad blocker. Believe me, it's not as many as you would think, because there's another person who blocks ads. Oh, maybe it's European then. Maybe it's a law within the EU against doing that. Because if you've seen Stop Killing Games, there's a lot of stuff going down with that right now, especially over in the EU.
Banned. And here's how the rule played out. Eagle-eyed users spotted a change. SteamDB's removals list basically exploded overnight. Hundreds of adult-only games vanished. Especially games that, we will call not involving consent or involving family members, right? The sort of thing that many...
Who has time to make this kind of content? Or these kinds of games? It's almost like they're thirsty, and this is where their thirst is going. Can't quench it, just gotta make it.
People would find to be extremely distasteful, but that in the setting of like a fictional thing for adults is...
I'll be honest, I did not know this kind of content was on Steam until literally today. I mean, there was a game on Steam that they called Boobs. And you basically just have this big 3D hand randomly slapping back and forth. And it was weird, but it was free with a beta. So, I mean, I had suspected there was this side of Steam, but because I'm mainly on Steam playing Elden Ring, playing Terraria, playing Vindicus, playing D&D games like Neverwinter Nights, and playing Baldur's Gate 2 and 3, and Skyrim. I've never been on this side of Steam. I didn't know this was the kind of content that was being poured out. I mean, Sister Times slaves? What the heck?
Is not illegal, at least in every jurisdiction, right? And that's the bit that's interesting. So yes, this is unpalatable content to some people. It's illegal, though, in a few jurisdictions, which we'll address later in the video.
Does Steam enforce the jurisdiction bans via IP addresses? I'm curious. If that's the case, then Steam's actually proactively trying to prevent certain areas from getting it. But again, I still have to reiterate this. Why don't parents just parent? They're always blaming the companies. But, like, child protection locks, child protective things prevent them from viewing certain things. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like parents should parent, leave the companies alone, and it can go too far sometimes. But, like, this group in Australia proactively took Visa and MasterCard business company, talked to them, and then proceeded to ask them to get this stuff banned. Don't get me wrong, I do not agree with Steam having all this stuff. That's not stuff that I get on Steam for. In fact, I know there's an adult side. I did not know there was this adult side. That's some crazy stuff Steam allowed on their platform. Oh, wow.
But here's what matters, right? Not all of these games are illegal. What this was a blanket removal. And you may say that in theory, Valve is complying with the law, except they're not. This is not about the law. This is about third-party pressure, not legal compliance. The reason why is, well, payment processors. The admission. Valve admitted everything in a statement that was sent to Rock Paper Shotgun. They said this, quote, "We were recently notified that certain games in Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card networks and banks." Again, not do breach, just may breach.
Okay, so they mentioned there was 3 payment processes that Steam uses that were responsible for this. But I've only heard of Visa and MasterCard sending down a letter asking them to do this when they made the changes. What about PayPal? Did PayPal have anything to say? And I like how my pause caught him at the perfect image. If you guys can see this, notice how it's like he's got a lazy eye and he looks halfway tired. This is how you catch meme photos.
That's a through line here. So responding to this, Valve pulled all of the games. They notified the devs, offered the $100 and called it a day. You might be thinking, God damn, you didn't even put up a fight? Well, yeah, they didn't. And there's a reason why they just called it a day and caved so quickly. The brutal truth is that without PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Steam kinda dies. Or at least a lot of its revenue goes away. I mean, think about it. Visa and MasterCard control, didn't make this up, 69%. Of global credit cards. It's a pretty high percent. They dominate debit cards in the US as well, and lately they've been flexing. They've been cutting off other businesses, and if they drop Steam, that would be game over. Valve can't just go and create their own.
That's the problem with a so-called free market and monopolies. Because let's be real, how many of you have Visa and MasterCard? I know I have MasterCard because my bank uses MasterCard for their debit cards services. So I know that they take over the majority of stuff. That's crazy, that level of monopoly. And they can influence a company to change that quickly.
Own payment network. Can you imagine dealing with the infrastructure, the regulatory compliance for all the different regions? It would be a nightmare. So Valve are trapped. But you may notice something's been left out. We know that it may be the guidelines of the payment processors. We know that Valve is worried.
He's saying the guidelines, but my question still hasn't been answered. Did they make these changes because of that group in Australia? Or did they send a notice to MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal from that group in Australia only to tell them, hey, this platform has a bunch of this stuff on it that's already in your terms of service, so you may want to say something to them? I'm curious which of it is it? did they change their policies overnight because of that group? Or were the policies already there and did Visa and MasterCard? YouTube, enjoy work. Hope it's not too hard. I'm curious what they did, because this is the thing I can't understand.
But who's actually driven this issue? The agitators. The Aussies. Yep, the Aussies have done this. Thanks, lads. Basically, right? An Australian group called Collective Shout claimed a big victory here. Basically, they sent an open letter on July 11th. It targeted PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa directly, and it got 1,067 supporters to basically email these companies. Which is not a lot, but it was enough. Now, they claimed then that they were subject to misogynistic abuse online for being involved in doing this campaign, and it was loud. A lot of people looking at this basically just said, hey, you censorious bastards, go away. You don't get to just impose your whatever values on the rest of us, especially not the rest of the world if what you're basically doing is trying to go for the payment processors. Now, look, I am not making a claim that you should like all of these games, right? Or that you should find them palatable. No, I am not. What this is, though, is a policy discussion, one that actually does impact all of us. Now, what they were pushing for, I think to a lot of people, is an overreach, certainly a risk, certainly worrying. As always in the internet, there is a small percentage of people who go way, way too far in not liking something. That did mean that they, would be able to take, oh, that's a misogynistic message, that's an angry tweet. They could just take all of those things and actually use them as further proof that they are being subject to misogynistic abuse online.
They're being subjected to trolls. I mean, that's the most obvious. Trolls act like they're doing us a favor when they fight on our behalf, but they think it's the funniest stuff in the world, but they're really just giving them more ammunition to use when it comes to filing grievances to get stuff taken down. I don't think a lot of them think through what they're doing. But the thing that blows my mind is the fact that this group in Australia, who I never heard of up to this point, because the majority of the games that I play don't get hit by controversial stuff. There was only one game that I ever saw get a big giant controversial hit, and that was Hogwarts Legacy. Like, that was attacked at every angle by LGBTQ plus supporters, and they were trying to get it taken down. Karen's and Kevin's. Honestly, Kevin's seemed like to me that they're just sadly beta males trying to get together with the highly activist females, hoping that something will happen. That's my view on it. It's not the best view to have, but sadly, that's all I see now is a lot of men screaming next to women who are activists, hoping. But I mean, at least they're trying, I guess. But I just don't understand how a group out of Australia it was able to get this to happen with these card companies, because normally they wouldn't give two craps what these people are sending them unless Visa and MasterCard and PayPal already had policies in place. They just didn't enforce them because they didn't know it was on Steam. I'm curious if it's already in their policies or if they changed it to support this group. That's what I want to know.
And this would just further their argument, make it stronger, make it more emotionally resonant to the people at, say, MasterCard and Visa, who themselves are probably just worried about getting negative press. Now, let's go more into this group. Who are Collective Shout? Well, Collective Shout described themselves as, quote, a grassroots campaign.
You can stop me right there, because grassroots, the moment I hear that, I know the term's not being used correctly. It's not being used correctly, because I can bet you the majority of those people that are running that organization are probably people barely out of their 30s. Grassroots is for much older people. Much older. You can claim you're grassroots if you were brought up, but it's not when you're between 20 and 30. I'll bet if we looked into this group and saw most of their activists, they probably have an age group of 20 to 30. Most likely. They're probably early parents who don't take any responsibility for parenting their kids. Be nice if they did, but Nope, they got to attack all the places that it helps my kid. I can't block my kid from seeing it. You can, you just don't want to do it. You want everyone else to do it for you.
Movement against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls. They've been active since 2009. Their targets range quite widely. This is from actively illegal stuff to just content that they simply find to be distasteful. And they've taken on legitimately unsavory products. Tate Brothers, for instance, they try to challenge like sexist advertising, they boycott some films they don't like the 50 Shades of Grey stuff, but they've also went to target mainstream gaming.
50 Shades of Grey was a book, and they made a movie about it. Interesting. Boy, I've been out of the loop a bit. I did not know half these movies existed for most of these books.
Like, say, Grand Theft Auto.
I know Netflix is doing some stuff
from shelves in Target and Kmart in Australia. And in that case, it was on the grounds of violence against...
You know what GTA 6 reminds me of? It's like the next Elder Scrolls that is never going to come out. Ever. That's basically it. Because that's all I'm waiting for. There's millions of people waiting for GTA 6. Me, I'm waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. But no, Bethesda's like, we got to do all this and all that. I'm like, come on, guys. Give me my Elder Scrolls.
Against women in an open world game with a whole bunch of characters. If you just go beat people up, yeah, you can do that. You know, you can say, oh my god, look at this terrible thing in the game that I just did and recorded. Interesting. Now, they also went for Detroit Become Human for the same thing. Other campaigns against that game all failed. But it is clear that, yeah, they're able to pick up wins. I mean, even in Steam, they've got wins, and this is not their first win on the Steam platform. They've complained about multiple Steam games before. Some got pulled individually, but this July, things have been different because they changed tactics, where instead of targeting Valve, they just went straight to the payment processors. Which, look, if you're a political operative, definitely say that's a smart move, right? Go above and above and have a massive impact. That's what they decided to do. And these are companies that have caved before. As an example, take a look at Tumblr. They banned all adult...
Okay, the Tumblr situation, holy crap, that had to happen. That had to happen. The stuff that was being posted on there, that I straight up couldn't even believe that they were being allowed to post on the stuff. There was child pornography on this site, and it's supposed to be a social media site. They were hiding it in like weird hidden links and things like that, from what I heard. Wow. So targeting Tumblr to get them to take that down, 100%. I am okay with that, because that is a social media platform. That's not somewhere you should have that. Woo.
Content after payment processors threatened them. PayPal has actually dropped ebook sellers over, let's just say, non-vanilla content. Non-vanilla content that is legal. That's the thing. And this is basically the playbook, and it's one that has just worked on Steam. But here's the thing, I kind of just misled you. I did it though for a point, so let me explain.
His videos tend to do this misleading thing, because I've watched a lot of his WoW lore videos, and when he explains something, he'll lead you down a path, and he'll be like, I misled you, and then come back to it. This is just a common trope that he does.
It is true that their campaign against Tumblr worked, and that yes, Tumblr just went to pull down all the prawns. But part of what sealed the deal for Tumblr was heaps upon heaps upon heaps of actual child...
Yeah, that stuff. That stuff. You may not want to say the word, but it's just the truth. That crap was there. Shouldn't have been there, but it was.
You know, abuse content, material, CASM, I believe it is called, in the press. Now, the Tumblr was, or cheese pizza is often what people would say online. Now, that Tumblr was a disgusting cesspool that was riddled with that actually illegal, just about everywhere content, was essentially an open secret on the internet. Tumblr was absolutely asleep at the wheel. They did not do a good enough job of policing their own platform. And because of that...
That's another thing. YouTube does not do a good job of policing its own platform. You can find tons of videos, just videos of random movies all over the place on these different channels. Some of these channels are verified and posting this content. And what they are is they're these small channels that support these families in India who post this content to get views and ad revenue so they can get money to take care of their families. Now, you're probably thinking, is that scummy or should it be taken down? Well, I have no two-way thoughts on that because it's one thing they're in a poor country and I get it, but at the exact same time, they're stealing someone else's content, reposting it, and profiting off it, but YouTube isn't policing it even though it's in their terms of service. It's like a weird two-way street. You're trying to find some common ground. But if I had to make my choice, I would straight up just enforce the policy as written and just go with that. And YouTube does a terrible job of policing its content. Whew.
That, I honestly can't say I'm surprised that payment processors wanted nowhere near it, because the facts were that content existed there, and a lot of, well, you know, the maps, they congregated there. Okay, let's bring us back to Steam, though. So, Waypoint's Anna Valens reported something interesting here. She flagged that Valve does actually put extra scrutiny in adult game submissions. For just one example, a game got rejected for inaccessible files that, quote, might feature underage characters. So, was illegal content really getting through all the time with Steam? I would say probably not in most cases. But it did happen once. Steam did have one major slip-up. Collective Shout exploited that brilliantly. Do you remember a game called No Mercy? It released in March, and it featured, quote, non-consensual domination of family members. Collective Shout mobilized against this game. 3,000 emails were sent to Gabe Newell.
You're right about that, because they'll
happened.
cut the audio in the video.
That content was illegal somewhere, just not everywhere. Where it was illegal was the United Kingdom and Australia, and actually under relatively new laws. Now that does mean that under Valve's own rules, that game should not have been sold at all in those regions. But Valve didn't act for 5 days. They only acted after international media coverage. I mean, the UK government even commented in that case. Now, eventually the developer pulled it entirely to avoid causing Valve more problems. This, of course, gave Collective Shout ammunition. They could just point to No Mercy and they could say, see, illegal content can get through. The implication was perhaps that Collective Shout over-egged their claims, perhaps mixed the potentially illegal in some regions with content that they simply find distasteful. Never mind the basic fact that most of the removed games were not illegal in all territories. But the narrative stuck. The waters were muddy.
I'm still curious how Valve would enforce that. Because even here in the USA, they have different laws in each state. And then there's different countries with different laws. Would Valve have to set itself up to be able to enforce under all those laws through IP addresses? Because the majority of people try to use VPNs. Or they'll use proxies and try to avoid the detection. I don't know. I'm just curious how people are bypassing that, or Valve's even enforcing that. Because based on what he just said in the very beginning of the video, Valve was not enforcing most of those rules it set for that adult cinema. So because of that, I guess it's just the same with everybody. You hope one of your favorite places that you like to hang out at enforces its rules equally among everyone, but they just don't. YouTube doesn't. Twitch definitely doesn't. And then you've got now Steam. Boy.
Because of this No Mercy thing, groups like Collective Shout can just point to an event like No Mercy being pulled, and they can use that to convince payment processors that other illegal content might be there on the platform. Because all they really need to do is convince a large company that, look, it's happened before, it could happen again, you don't want that risk, you should pressure them. That's how this kind of thing goes. This story, though, does actually hit rather differently when you know a little bit of the history in the background. You see, back in June 2018, Valve actually made a promise. They said that anything not illegal or trolling was actually allowed. Now, this came after backlash over adult game removals. They specifically said that they would not cave to payment processors or to interest groups. But here, 7 years later, they have done exactly that. They've just went and pulled games that may violate payment processor rules.
All right, so now that I get a chance to look at Rule 15 more clearly, because I'm not sure how long the clip lasted before because I was too busy talking. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors. So that means if this is to be taken at face value, that means that they already had these policies in place beforehand. They just weren't enforcing them equally among all their all their people that they use all the people that use their systems. So that's interesting. But I mean, that's be pretty hard for Visa and MasterCard, despite how big they are, to enforce across everywhere. Because they're used in everything, nearly. I mean, when I go to shop for groceries, it uses everything. Sorry there, I don't use those sites. Get a lot of these bots that like to post, or even if they're not bots, to post in my chats, like, hey, we use these websites that help boost your content. I'm like, no, I'll do it on my own. Appreciate you guys' interest, but none of that. Give me 1 sec, I have to delete, and deleters. Okay, I had to delete those.
And remember, that is the wording of Valve's new Rule 15. May, not does. May. Now you might think that may is just a very woolly, non-specific word. I would actually argue that here, oh no, may is a very, very specific word. They're using it because, well, it might not, but we don't want to run the risk of getting the proof. That's the specific language. It's a rule directly designed to give Valve preemptive permission based on their interpretation of other people's rules, but not anything that's actually deeply fought over or proved in any sort of objective sense, or at least one that would lead to like a common societal or legal whatever consensus. And in a way, that's scary. What's next? I mean, will developers see these mysterious rules before they go and submit their games? If people can find success over things that they find distasteful, what does that mean for other types of games? What happens when payment processors change their standards again? Because they will change them again. What matters is the collective shout just proved that the formula works, the plan works. Just over 1,000 emails alleging illegal content force this change. Not proving, just alleging. That's a low bar and a...
He's right, it is a low bar. But, based on the information that we've seen, the payment processors already had these policies in their terms of service, or whatever agreement package that they have for utilization of their services. Which means if they're going to work with a certain company, they're going to work with it and expect those policies to be honored. The problem is, though, as big as Visa and MasterCard are, and PayPal, not that I've heard much about them, it seems like it was just Visa and MasterCard, that they can't enforce it across all platforms unless it's brought to their attention by an outside group. And this group was a bunch of very angry political people that are in Australia. I haven't had any changes in policy at my bank other than one that happened about a year ago. So a weird policy, I didn't fully understand it, but if you have less than $100 in your account, they charge a $4.95 fee every month. So you have to maintain at least $100 in there, pretty much. And that's pretty much what they're doing. So they definitely do change them every now and then.
A low number of emails. And here's what really worries developers. Payment processors have targeted queer and minority content before. It often would get flagged as adult only in a disproportionate way. And in some instances, as an example in YouTube, it would simply just be because of who is making it and the sort of topic they're talking about, not necessarily what's in it in any way that, say, if it was just normal basic hetero stuff would even be targeted, right? So that's been awful. It's happened in YouTube. A lot of those people are also worried about this, not just, you know, big Team Goontown who just wants to have Steam Gooner games. But guess what? It gets worse. So as we recorded all of this, we saw further proof. itch.io essentially descended into chaos. The site had to de-index any content tagged as adult from their browse and search pages. That effectively takes it out of the public eye. It kind of removes discoverability. Now, they posted a blog that explicitly tied this to Collective Shout and payment processors. In their own words, quote, This is a time-critical moment for itch.io. The situation developed rapidly, and we had to act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. That essentially meant they had to act as fast as they could and then deal with talking to developers later. And what's happening now is the company are auditing their entire platform to review content that, would be against the standards set by these payment processors. Standard devs will now have to sign off as sort of meeting all these requirements on their pages. And again, these are not legal requirements, these are just the rules of payment processors, not the rules of itch. And it's any game that could be adult, right? Could. The not safe for work tag doesn't just mean FAP. It doesn't just mean nudity. It can be a lot of other things. And here's what's wild.
I can safely say this. If this group intends to target games from major publishers and developers, like let's say, for example, Larian Studios releases a new Divinity Sin game. They go into Divinity Sin 3, and that game has adult-themed content. And this group decides to try to target it. I'm getting the feeling Steam would be screwed, because Larian would just take it somewhere else and release it on a different platform, and yeah, that would be that. See, that's the issue, is there's big developers and publishers that make great games that sell for billions and make tons of money, and I don't think Steam wants to lose that piece of the pie. There's always the possibility that places like Steam, Valve, would come up with their own payment process. Now, don't get me wrong, they have the means. They could do it to create their own payment processor. I mean, they have the means. They're a billion-dollar company now. Valve has gotten that big. The Steam Deck alone has been unbelievably profitable for them. And the amount of stuff that they do has been profitable for them. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens if they want to put forth the infrastructure to build their own payment processing and just move off Visa and MasterCard. But I haven't heard anything about PayPal. He's mentioned PayPal 3 times, and nothing about PayPal's policies have come down. It seemed like it was just Visa and MasterCard.
The game count on itch went from 28,000 games to under 7,000 as of this morning, right? That's 21,000 games.
Okay, if we were to pull up the list of those games on itch.io, how bad would some of them be that are adult themed? Like, what are they? I'm kind of curious. I'm gonna look that up later.
Award-winning artistic titles are being hidden and being pulled, all while the devs impacted by this cannot pull their funds from the site while their accounts are under review. In a way, it's Itch's fault, but they kind of feel like they have to do this. I mean, compared to Valve, Itch is absolutely tiny. Percentage of Steam's traffic. But Itch isn't Steam. As a distribution platform, many of their pages are for art, books, non-commercial games, right? Both digital and tabletop. Especially, they have pretty, good penetration into the LGBT side of things, who maybe can't distribute through.
Did he just make a joke? I'm sure I heard that clearly. He said penetration into a certain group.
Other channels, so they're also disproportionately impacted by this. So basically, kind of no matter where you are in the spectrum, this isn't particularly good for you. And for the people making this, well, they are just in limbo, their livelihoods cut off. So it's not surprising that they're kind of not willing to take this shit. It's funny, the internet is an extremely divided and divisive place, but if you
It's more of a volatile place. For all intents and purposes, humans are very chaotic. We go from one thing to the next, and sometimes we don't just settle.
you're to make it a Venn diagram, and you're to put in a circle that just says Homo sapiens that get kind of horny, guess what? That covers almost everybody. So I'd at least hope that this could be an instance where people who perhaps wouldn't normally be on the same side of an issue can maybe band together, because it does actually impact everyone, because it's about the shared rules of the game. And that's what leads me to developers of not safe for work games trying to fight back. They are preparing a petition.
I think what we need now, honestly, is for our, at least here in the United States, for our actual government, federal government, to develop new copyright legislation and actually sit back and work out new laws in place for internet, because at this point, it's getting to the point where they're allowing companies to be the ones to make the decisions and establish precedents like a judge does with a case. And that's not okay. We've got to get our legislators to actually come forward and do some new development. I mean, for crying out loud, senators and congressmen have nearly 100 plus days off a year. A year. And they spend most of that golfing or going to big dinner engagement events to get tons of money from their sponsors. I mean, this is why I'm not a big fan of my federal government right now. It really needs to get some of these 80, 90-year-old people out of office and get some young blood in there and make some changes. We may not like all the changes, but at least change is happening at a much faster rate than it is now.
Petition to the United Kingdom government. One of our members from Bellular.games passed on this statement to us from the petition. They want legal products to be protected from payment processor censorship. But of course the big question is, will this matter? Because in 2018, Valve said they would defend creative freedom. In 2025, they won't even fight. I mean, Gabe, my boy, even Tim Sweeney's more of a goddamn fighter. Look at him! Dude just went to crack open Google, and, you know, even though it was really self-serving, he did actually succeed in cracking open a lot of Google and Apple. Just kind of ballin'. Shame about the whole exclusivity thing. Anyway, the message is pretty clear here. Any content that payment processors find objectionable could be next. So, look, it might start on...
I think, and you can hold me to this in a year or a few months if it does get worse, but I think this is probably where it stops. Because I don't think it's going to be that escalated. I think that group in Australia understood the policies that Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal had, sent them notices that this particular company had this content, and they just contacted them saying, hey, you're violating the policies. We're going to have to pull out if you don't, enforce what you agreed upon with us when we signed our contracts. So that's what I think it is. I think it's just enforcing their already in place policies. Now, yes, they do change policies on a whim. Some have 30-day notices, others will inform you in 6 days, others just tell you we can change it whenever we want and we'll inform you when we do. But as far as I can tell, this is just me. I could be wrong. It might just stop with this. Because this probably was already policies they had in place, and they just wanted them to be honored. Maybe it'll stop with that. Could be wrong, but maybe it will.
On a transfery game and a, sort of gooner game in Steam. Maybe two separate bits of the thing. It may start there. But what if it continues? I think we can see that sort of thing continue. Again, the laws that a bunch of this stuff isn't actually allowed, allowed per in the UK and Australia, those are relatively new laws. So we should actually think about the direction of travel here. You may not like something or agree with someone's, actions or whatever.
A fine example of that was the J.K. Rowling's whole thing with Hogwarts Legacy. They tried to boycott it to death, and it backfired so hard on the people that tried to boycott it that they did double the sales that they were expecting and got over $1 billion in revenue for the game. And the game was good. I'm not even going to deny that. But it's just funny to me how hard they try. But then when we, the gamers, fight back, how badly they lose. And then they keep trying to fight again, and then they lose, and they keep coming back. It's like a back and forth round off in boxing. He's down. No, he's down. He's coming back. There's a left hook, a right jab, straight to the gut, liver shot, kidney shot, everything.
But the law that hits them could hit you in ways that you don't necessarily have the capacity to predict, because we can't look into the future. That's why thinking about the more baseline systems is actually what's important here. Because at the end of the day, in almost all of our societies, what's the point? The point is, well, laws are made up that are ideally via some sort of democratic process. That's the sort of stuff that people think.
That's the sort of stuff we need. Actual laws in place to enforce certain things, because companies being able to push their weight and make a law that's not an actual law, enforce it, is crazy to me. Shows the amount of power they have. But then again, Visa and MasterCard have a monopoly. They have a big monopoly. So free market monopolies are not good. They're not good. So I hope that we get something in place that stops us from continuing. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
They should be beholden to. Now, a private business has, of course, the right to do business, whatever way they want. That's okay. But what happens when a private business becomes such a large foundational piece of infrastructure that you cannot get around them? That means that whenever PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and other providers pretty much all agree and are very worried about their big corporate interests, about trying to defend their position as infrastructure by cozying up to governments, well, what way do you think they will end up being biased? But to bring it back to Steam, Steam being the place where anything goes as long as it's legal, is now dead. The spirit of it's mostly alive, but it is literally dead. Here's the thing. Once you become a platform that's large, you become a kingmaker. You hold a lot of power. If you invite not safe for work people onto your platform, you are saying, hello, we're inviting you over here. We are going to do business with you, and that would be great for all of our shared customers. You're safe here. Do business with us. Trust us. Well, if your processes are not tight enough to defend that space, say to let illegal content in, as Tumblr kept on doing, well, you basically betray all of those people that took you on good faith. And that means you are breaking your end of the bargain. Valve have done that here. And there's a reason why it's content like this that ends up being the sparking point. It's carnal. It's animalistic. It's topics that people feel, right? It's fears that people hold, and fear.
Look at some of these names. That, I don't even want to know what that would be about. Well, that's just a silly name. Some of those names.
Magnifies. As today shows, it only took 1,067 emails orchestrated by a group that knows how to play the system in a country far away that doesn't have much to do with most of the people watching this channel, yet it impacts global Steam. That should be worrying. And even better for Collective Shout, it's self-sustaining. That's because pushback, insults, and perhaps abuse that they get from people who have been angered by all of this, guess what? That just gives them more fuel to do corporate jujitsu on risk-adverse multinational corporations who want a good quarter, no risk, no bad quarterly report dramas. As for Steam, well, the bar is low, and the language of their rules is worryingly vague. It's not the only legal problem Steam has got. Oh no, there's another big one. We'll be covering it shortly. But for another policy issue that impacts you, well, how about this? The idea that Sony have potentially engaged in monopolistic practices and price manipulation to systemically overcharge you for video games by destroying market principles. That's the allegation, and you can learn about the story in this video next.
Okay, that wouldn't shock me. That Sony or Microsoft with Xbox would do something like that. Because, I mean, you've seen it. $79.99 games, $89.99 games. Nintendo is doing it. And Nintendo is extremely strong about protecting their everything. Nintendo will do whatever it takes to protect their brand. And they go crazy with it sometimes. All right.
Hey there, everyone. If you enjoy this content, like and subscribe and comment down below. Thanks again.